one last, hopefully short video right before this fight. In a couple of hours, I think. And I want to talk about this incredible hype for a Friday night fights undercard fight. Because that is what we're looking at here. But before we do any of that, give the video a like, comment, sub, check out my Patreon, buy me a coffee, Cash App. Thank you very much. So while in the States this would be a Friday night fights undercard fight, in the UK this is a 10-round main event that's on pay-per-view. The disparity in how these two different markets would perceive a fight such as this one is incredible, and it's a comment on the sad state of boxing. A fight such as this one might be showcased, and make no mistake, this is a showcase fight, as the second or third undercard fight on Crawford-Madrimov. A main event that was perceived to be huge, but really at the end of the day just flopped. In the States, this Itauma Whyte fight would fit right under Bakole-Anderson, which in and of itself was a much better fight, at least on paper, and probably in the ring. We'll see, but think about it. Jared Anderson was a hot, up-and-coming, undefeated, heart-punching, athletic American prospect who not only had quite a few more fights than Itauma, he had beaten a far better level of opposition. Bakole, for his part, had only had one loss and had bounced back in pretty good fashion in 10 or so fights, beating good level of opposition. And the B-side, and I think the underdog, ended up winning the fight. It was a good fight. And I think there still were 4 fights ahead of it on Crawford-Madrimov. And while that fight probably did deserve more recognition, and the fact that it didn't is a statement on how sad US boxing is at this point in time. To have a fight in the UK that's not nearly as good as that one, hailed as some kind of pay-per-view main event over 10 rounds and this great passing of the torch and all this other nonsense, is definitely not a sign that UK boxing is healthy, even though it's wildly more popular than stateside. It shows how polarized boxing is across the globe insofar as its popularity, and neither extreme is good or healthy. American boxing fans don't want to pay for boxing, and the Brits will buy poop on the stick and tell you how great it is. The US has almost no casuals left watching the sport, and UK has way too many. Half the people at them fights are probably women. I don't know, just talking smack. Relax. And I think in order to justify this heist, this bank robbery, you gotta over-promote this fight. You gotta blow it way the hell out of proportion, what it actually is. You have to overhype the fight and both fighters in it. So while both of these guys would have been considered soft insofar as their physical appearance on those scales, maybe even 10 years ago, today, in the UK, they're in great shape. While Moses Itauma is barely a prospect with lots of questions surrounding him, in the UK, and I think at least one sanctioning body agrees, he's a contender. Just ask Ring Magazine, the Quran of boxing. Dillian Whyte, for his part, is basically a shot fighter who had shown little to no desire in his last couple of 3, 4, 5 fights. Had been brutally knocked out, slept, not just stopped, put to sleep 3 times, cannot take a punch anymore, and had been advised many times to just retire. And isn't ranked in the top 10 of any of these sanctioning bodies who are always looking to make a buck. And he is pretty popular still. So what on paper is, and go have a look at the odds if you don't believe me, an absolute mismatch. What should be nothing but a showcase for a young, undefeated, up-and-coming, promising fighter is being hyped up as an old lion who still has potentially one great performance left in him versus a young lion. A fight where a lot of pundits are unsure about Moses Itauma winning because Dillian Whyte has a Photoshop six-pack. This is somehow a passing of the torch fight that's just going to catapult Itauma up in the rankings. As if he needed this garbage excuse, seeing as he's already the number 1 or number 2 guy in the heavyweight division in 1 or 2 of these sanctioning bodies. These narratives don't make any sense. And the odds definitely don't justify any of this. How is this a passing of the torch fight while Dillian Whyte is also coming to win at the same time? That doesn't make any sense. And what sort of torch is Dillian Whyte passing exactly? While he was a legit top 10 contender even 5 years ago, now he is, well, maybe a journeyman? A gatekeeper? And one that's shot at that. So I ask you, what sort of a torch is he passing? The gatekeeper torch? The crypt keeper torch? Well, no, the number 1 to Usyk's crown contender torch, obviously, because that's who Dillian Whyte is, right? The number 1 contender to Usyk's crown, and you have to go through Dillian in order to get to Usyk, right? Dillian and 3 or 4 other guys, maybe. This is a heist. It's a sham. This is some imagined formality that Itauma merely has to participate in order to secure himself the number 1 spot. A spot that he already seems to hold, at least in the mind of the only guy that matters, at least these days, in determining how this goes, right? Turki al-Sheikh. A position he was anointed with because they kept mentioning his name with Mike Tyson for like 3 or 4 years now. Is that why? He's perceived to be that guy, right? Amateur gold medalist. Yeah, in the kiddie leagues. A guy that's simply being force-fed down the throats of drunken Brit fans. That's what it is. Sorry. And don't get me wrong, the guy is athletically gifted, he's very promising, but he's nowhere near even contender status. Definitely not the number 1 contender to the undisputed lineal crown. Not even a trinket! And he's not even that popular. What is he getting paid for this fight? Half of what Dillian's getting? Economically speaking, he is a B-side to Dillian Whyte. But he is the preferred, the anointed, the chosen one. They're using Dillian Whyte to catapult this guy into the consciousness of the British boxing fan. And once you have that, well, obviously you're the number 1 contender. You're the champion in their minds, and beating Usyk is, well, just a formality. Another one of them. That's why you have all these pundits talking so highly of this guy, when he hasn't achieved anything, amateur or pro. You're hearing all these gym stories, which is kind of poetic, seeing as he's fighting another one of his sparring partners. Did anybody catch Turkey putting live sparring sessions in front of a live audience just the other day? Interesting development, I thought. But we're here now. You're getting a Friday Night Fights showcase on pay-per-view. One last heist, they say. So if this is what you gotta pay for, how bad will the free stuff become eventually? But back to our passing of the torch fight, where the old lion is actually coming to win this time. That's probably why they turned a blind eye to Dillian cranking up his prescription a little bit for this one. Or maybe would like to have that in their back pocket should Dillian Whyte actually listen to their advice. That's why they photoshopped the beer belly into a 6-pack. To keep up appearances. Or maybe Dillian Whyte's 2-pack is showing through some 20% body fat because he is roided to the gills. If only to look good on that bodybuilding stage. Maybe that's why this T-Rex armed Itauma has all of a sudden more reach than the knuckle dragger. At least according to the Quran of boxing. So when Dillian Whyte gets in that ring and doesn't use his jab, or not properly, doesn't extend his punches, he starts pulling them, throwing them from way too close. It's not gonna be because he's sucking on purpose, it's gonna be because Itauma has a significant reach advantage on him. And Itauma's gonna get hailed as some kind of a boxing savant, a master, a monster, because after all, Dillian Whyte gave it a go. He did his best. This time, he came to win.